I have been watching you carry this season with white knuckles, not from a distance, from the seat right beside you. Watching you grip the steering wheel like the road might disappear if you loosened a single finger. Watching you rehearse the next conversation, the next decision, the next outcome while the muscles in your jaw quietly stayed clenched. I am not pointing this out to embarrass you. I am pointing it out because I love the hands you are holding everything with. And I cannot stand to see them so tired. I notice the small things, the way your shoulders climb toward your ears when you think about money, the way your breath shortens when you remember the conversation you have been postponing, the way you scroll past certain notifications because you do not have the bandwidth to feel one more thing today. None of this escapes me. None of this makes me think less of you. If anything, it makes me lean closer. You have been holding a great deal. Most of it quietly. Most of it without anyone applauding. Some of it without anyone even knowing. The world has a way of mistaking quiet competence for ease. They see you handling things and they assume you're not also breaking a little inside. I see both. I always have. Listen, the chapter that comes next, the one you keep trying to write before it arrives, the one that has been keeping you up earlier than you would like to admit, I want to ask you something about it. Not as a demand. Not as a test. As a question between us. The way one person who loves you would ask another. Would you let me have it? I am asking quietly. Not because the question is small, but because anything bigger would frighten you. And I am not in the business of frightening the people I love. Open your hand right now. Just one of them. Palm up. If you cannot do it physically because of where you are, do it inside. In the place behind your ribs where you have been making fists at the future. That is the gesture I want to talk about. Not letting go in some cinematic, dramatic way. Just easing the grip. Just enough that your fingers remember they were not made to clench. You have been treating the road ahead like a thing that has to be controlled or it will betray you. I understand why. The road behind you was not always kind. You learned somewhere along the way that if you did not stay on top of every detail, every variable, every possible failure, life would punish you for the lapse. I am not going to scold you for that. You came by it honestly. Pain teaches strange lessons. But I want to teach you a different lesson now. And I cannot teach it while your hands are full. The lesson is this. There are things that grow only in open palms. Trust grows there. Surprise grows there. Provision lands there. Joy unhooks itself from your strategy and chooses you there. None of these things can settle into a closed fist. They are not that kind of weight. They are the kind of weight that has to be received the way a leaf receives rain. You cannot grab them. You can only host them. You have been wonderful at grabbing. I want to teach you hosting. Hosting is not lazy. People mistake it for that. They think the person with open hands is the person who has given up. The opposite is true. The person with open hands is the person who has stopped fighting reality and started cooperating with it. That is a much more advanced posture than gripping. Gripping is what we learn first. Hosting is what we learn when we have grown. There is a particular kind of tired that settles into the body of a person who has been planning their own rescue for too long. It is not the tired of work. Work is honest tired. This is something else. This is the tired of carrying both the wagon and the road. This is the tired of being the architect, the laborer, the inspector, the insurance, and the prayer all at once. I see it in you. I have been seeing it in you longer than you know. So I am asking with no urgency, with no threat, will you let me have it? I will not snatch it. That is not who I am. If you say no, I will keep walking beside you the way I have been. I will keep loving you with the chapter still in your hands. I am not the kind of God who withdraws when you cannot release. But I am asking because something better is possible than the version where you carry this alone. Hear me when I say it. The chapter you are gripping does not get better the harder you grip it. The grip is not what makes it real. The grip is just what makes you tired. So let us try a different posture. Let me be the one who carries the weight of what comes next. Let me be the one who notices the cracks in the road before your foot finds them. Let me be the one who sees around the corners you cannot see around. You were never supposed to be your own scout. You were never supposed to be your own shield. You were never supposed to author every line of the story before it was lived. You are allowed to be the person inside the story. You are allowed to walk through it instead of writing it. Are you willing to release it? Not all at once if you cannot. A little. A finger at a time. Whatever portion of the chapter you can hand over right now, hand over. The rest can come later. I am patient. I have always been patient with you. Some of what you are gripping is not even yours. Did you know that? Some of what you call your responsibility is grief that you have dressed up as duty. Some of what you call your planning is fear that you have given a productive name. I am not condemning you for the costume. I am just gently telling you what is underneath it. You can take it off. There is grief in your hands that belongs to people who came before you. Patterns inherited from a parent who never learned to rest. Worry handed down through a family line, the way a recipe is handed down. Only this one feeds nothing. You picked it up because it was the only language for love that you saw modeled. You don't have to keep speaking it. There is another language available. A language of trust. A language of receiving. I will teach it to you slowly. The way a patient teacher teaches a second tongue. Never shaming the first one. Only showing you that there are more words for what you mean than the ones you grew up with. There is fear in your hands that came from one specific moment. And your body has been generalizing from that moment ever since. Your body is loyal that way. It tries to protect you by treating every new situation like the old one that hurt you. I understand the loyalty. I am not asking your body to stop loving you. I am only asking it to update its information. The danger that taught it to clench is not actually here anymore. The room has changed. The cast has changed. Music, you are allowed to recognize that and let your hands learn the new room. There is also something in your hands that does belong to you. Real responsibility. Real care. The weight of people you love and would never want to fail. I am not asking you to drop those. I am asking you to hold them the way I hold them. With confidence instead of compulsion. With prayer instead of panic. With the kind of grip that a cup uses to hold water. Not the kind of fist uses to hold a sword. You are allowed to be entrusted with something without strangling it. I want to tell you what I can do with what you release. Because I think part of why you keep your hands closed is that you do not actually believe me yet. You think if you give me the chapter, I will leave it on a shelf and forget. You think if you stop them the way I hold them. With confidence instead of compulsion. With prayer instead of panic. With the kind of grip that a cup uses to hold water. Not the kind of fist uses to hold a sword. You are allowed to be entrusted with something without strangling it. I want to tell you what I can do with what you release. Because I think part of why you keep your hands closed is that you do not actually believe me yet. You think if you give me the chapter, I will leave it on a shelf and forget. You think if you stop pushing the wheel will stop turning. This is what I want you to know. The moment you place a piece of this season in my hands, I begin to write things into it that you could not have written. Not because you are not skilled. You are very skilled. You have been resourceful in ways that have impressed even me. But I have access to materials you do not have. I work with people who have not yet entered your life. I work with timing you cannot read on a clock. I work with doors that exist on the other side of walls you have not yet seen. When you hand me the chapter, I do not just hold it. I begin to weave. Weaving is patient work. It does not happen at the speed of headlines. It happens at the speed of seeds. A thing is planted. A thing germinates underground while everything above ground looks unchanged. A thing pushes through soil at a moment no one would have predicted. A thing flowers in a season you forgot you had asked for. That is how I work in the lives of people who let me have the loom. I am not a vending machine. I am a gardener. The difference matters because if you keep waiting for the vending machine to drop your blessing in a single satisfying clink, you will miss the slow miracle that is already growing under your feet. I weave in the friend who has not yet appeared. The conversation that will land on a day you did not expect. The provision that will arrive through a route you would never have planned because you would not place in slow, quiet increments while you're sleeping, the protection that intercepts trouble you never even knew was coming for you. All of this lives in the part of the chapter you cannot reach, and it is the part one do best. I weave in the call that comes through at the moment your phone was about to die, the traffic delay that kept you out of the accident you never even knew was waiting at the next intersection, the book you opened to a page that said the exact sentence you needed, the stranger who held a door open and looked at you a half-second longer than necessary because they were carrying a small piece of my care for you and did not even know it. These threads are everywhere. You walk through them every day. Most of them you never notice. They were not meant to be noticed. They were meant to work. I weave in the answered prayer that does not look like an answered prayer until you turn around 5 years later and see what was actually being built. I weave in the no that protected you from a yes that would have hurt you. I weave in the door that closed because the room behind it was not for you, even though you wanted it to be. I weave in the relationship that ended because a better one needed the space. None of this happens by accident in the lives of those who let me handle the loom. None of it. You do not need to manage me. You only need to trust me. If these words are landing in you, leave a phrase in the comments. Just 2 words. Type 1 release. Not for me, for your own ears, so that the muscles around your hands hear you say it out loud in a place that records it. So that the part of you that has been clenched for years finally hears your own voice giving permission. It does not need to be perfect. A whisper of release is still a release. A trembling yes is still a yes. The smallest crack in the wall around your chest is enough light for me to enter through. What if you stopped holding it? Not forever, just for the length of this breath, just long enough to test whether the world keeps turning when you are not the one cranking the wheel. I will be here when the breath ends. I will be here when the next breath begins. The chapter will not become unwritten because you set it down for a moment. You have spent so much energy keeping things from falling. Did anyone ever tell you that some things are supposed to fall so that better things can rise in their place? There is a kind of holding on that is, in disguise, a refusal to be helped. You did not mean for it to become that. It started as competence. It started as care. But somewhere along the way, the helping muscle turned into the holding muscle, and the holding muscle started flexing even when no real weight was on it, just in case. I am gentle with that muscle. I am not asking it to atrophy. I am asking it to learn rest. Rest is not the absence of strength. Rest is the ground that strength stands on. Without it, every effort eventually buckles. So consider this an invitation to a strength you have not tried yet, the strength of stillness. The strength of letting something happen without supervising it. The strength of trusting that the architecture of the universe is not held up by your worry. You are not the support beam of your own life. You are the person living inside the house. The beams belong to me. They are doing their job. They have not failed once. I notice the way you wake before you're ready, mind already running, already negotiating with the day, already drawing up plans for situations that have not asked for your management yet. I notice the conversations you have in your head with people who never said the things you are answering. I notice how often you arrive at the future in your imagination before your feet have arrived in the present. None of this is a sin. I am not raising any of it as evidence against you. I am raising it because you do not have to live this way anymore. Whisper this back to me in your own voice, quietly, even if it is just a movement of the lips. Say, you can have it. Say it once. That is all. One time is enough, unless you want more. Sometimes one honest sentence in your own voice is louder than 1,000 prayers you read off of someone else's page. You can have it. Hear yourself. Hear how the muscles in your throat soften when you speak the truth without armor. I will tell you a story I think of when I think of you. The man named Joseph. You know the shape of his ark, so I will not retell it. What I want to point at is the moment in the prison, after the dreams have been crushed, after the betrayal, after the years that should not have happened to anyone. Every reason was there to grip the future, to demand answers, to insist that life owed him a refund. None of those reasons were taken up. He kept interpreting other people's dreams while his own quietly waited. He let the chapter belong to me, and when the time came, the chapter belonged to him in ways he could never have negotiated for himself. Not because he was passive, because he was free. There is a difference between the two, and I want you to feel it. I am not asking you to be Joseph. I am asking you to know that the same hands that wrote his rescue are writing yours, and those hands work better when they are not fighting your hands for the pen. The dreamer in your story is inside of you, not behind you. There is a part of you that your own self-doubt sold off cheaply, a part of you that overthinking dropped into a pit, a part of you that perfectionism keeps locked in a small interior cell while the rest of the world appears to move ahead without you. That part of you is not lost. That part of you can still stand up and walk into the room where the chapter changes. I am preparing that room as we speak. The dreamer in you is closer to the throne than you think, and I am the one keeping the door propped open. Let me have it. I am not interested in a version of your life that you white-knuckled into existence. That version will exhaust you, and even when it arrives, it will not feel like a gift. It will feel like a debt you paid. I am interested in the version that surprises you, the version where things you could not arrange come together in your favor. The version where you walk into rooms and the room was already prepared for you before you knew the room existed. That version is on the table. It has always been on the table. It only requires that you stop trying to be both the host and the guest. I will be the host. You be the guest. That is the shape of grace. A guest does not check the temperature of the oven. A guest does not rearrange the chairs before the meal arrives. A guest does not run to the kitchen every 5 minutes to make sure the host is doing it correctly. A guest sits down. A guest receives. A guest enjoys what is being prepared and trusts that the preparation has been thought through. You have been the cook, the server, and the diner all at once. No wonder you are tired. Sit down. The meal is being made. The table is being set. There is a place for you, and the place was set with love. There is a posture beneath the posture of working from rest instead of working for it. Even people who loved me deeply once had to learn this. The lesson is not new. It is just patient. It comes around to each of us in our own time. It has come around to you now. That is not punishment. That is graduation. The next stage of love is the one where the doing rises out of the being received and not the other way around. There is something tender about a person who finally stops performing their own life. It is one of the most beautiful things I get to watch. The shoulders drop. The breath goes lower in the body. The face softens around the eyes. The voice loses the edge it did not even know it was carrying. It is not a religious moment. It is more honest than that. It is just a person finally believing they are loved enough to be carried. I watch this happen in people of all sorts. The mother who has been holding the family together with sheer will and finally exhales because she remembered she is not the only one watching her children. The man who has been the strong one for everyone and finally cries in a quiet room because he remembered that his own heart was made to be held, too. The young person who has been performing wisdom and finally admits they do not know what comes next and feels the relief of being received in that not knowing. Each of these moments is sacred to me. Each one tells me that someone has remembered they are not alone in their own life. I want to add your moment to that list, the one that comes when you finally let go of the chapter, the one that comes when your jaw unclenches without your noticing, the one that comes when you put your phone down and breathe without immediately reaching for the next item on the list. That moment has your name on it. It is reserved. It is waiting. The waiting is patient. That is the moment I am inviting you into. It is not necessary that you know how this season ends. Knowing has been overrated for a long time. Knowing has not actually protected you. Knowing has only given you the illusion of control while quietly costing you your peace. I am offering you a trade, trust for knowing, presence for prediction, rest for management. It is a generous trade. I would not propose it if I did not love you. What if the planning you have been doing was always a stand-in for the closeness you have been avoiding? Sit with that, not as accusation, as insight. Sometimes we plan because intimacy feels too risky. Sometimes we strategize because being held feels foreign. Sometimes the muscle that grips is the same muscle that has been afraid to be tender. You are allowed to be tender with me. I have never punished tenderness. I have only ever rewarded it. I know there have been voices in your past that taught you to be wary of softness, voices that mocked your tears, voices that called your sensitivity a flaw, voices that suggested that being tough was the only way to survive. Some of those voices were people who loved you and did not know better. Some of those voices were people who never loved you and were trying to harden you so you would be easier to control. I do not need to sort them out for you. I only want you to know that not one of those voices spoke for me. I am not the voice that tells you to stiffen up. I am the voice that says you can let your shoulders fall. The toughness you needed to learn for your survival is not the toughness you need anymore. You can take it off in my presence and not be hurt. You can come to me wet from crying and find that you are received the same way. Why?